probably gonna,
Yeah,
they're probably gonna be that way for a while.
that's perfect. We'll just do whatever is comes up. We don't care. You take your time.
Let me see if yeah, okay. I think I understand how to use the slideshow.
Okay, great.
Okay, so this one is called the Star, Ray of Hope. And so for the first time, we see a naked human. There's no longer any pretension. Wearing no persona or mask, she reveals her basic nature. In her hand, she holds two jars with which she pours water, one into the stream and the other back into the earth. Symbolically, this is the point where the living water of the collective unconscious touches the earth of human reality. Psychologically, the kneeling figure may be sorting out insights newly available to the consciousness, separating the personal from the transpersonal. If she were to reflect on the Tower of Destruction, she may relate the external happening to the internal psychic situation to which it corresponds. From now on, a new dimension of understanding prevails, which has an aspect of eternity. Note the parallels to the Age of Aquarius. So look at this. You can see, he's pouring from, there's one urn there, and then here's the other there. And you can see, that they look very similar. So now we will no longer see the world through the narrow apertures of the Tower of Destruction, the previous one. Aspects of the psyche formerly imprisoned will now be free and will come back to Earth where they can operate in a more realistic way. The Star Priestess will seek patterns in the events of terrestrial existence that correspond to heavenly design. Her rhythmic and ritual pourings are attuned to the cosmic dance above. The star system above her, the star system above her represents a sun wheel or mandala. The great star's appearance suggests a new vision of wholeness which has arisen from the depths and will soon be available to consciousness. The central star has a fixed center of spirit united with the red of the body, emotion, and flesh. This shows an important step has been taken for the active participation in the process of individuation. In the Tower of Enlightenment, enlightenment came as a blinding flash. Too cataclysmic to be faced, let alone assimilated. In other cards, the action has been carried by winged figures or heavenly personages. But now we have the central figure humbly kneeling, using contemplation to create space for her growth. The bird, you can see the bird right there. In the background is a demonstration of connection between heaven and earth that has become a living reality. The trees are alive and flourishing. Remember the hangman, the trees were all pretty stripped. The trees are rooted deep in the earth and towering into the sky, also demonstrate the connection between heaven and earth. The card feels very dreamlike and is full of symbols of the unconscious moving into the conscious. In the unconscious, the material is not separated. When new content appears, it may show as two similar but not identical entities. This was shown in the Pope with the two prelates kneeling side by side and wearing identical dress. In the Lover, the two women are not at all identical. They're differing in age, dress, and character. So they're becoming, the twins are becoming more differentiated. In the Chariot, the two horses represented the animal libido, yoked as one team. In the Star, we now see the two impulses pictured as two trees. Unlike the horses, they are not pulling against each other. The hero doesn't appear in this picture. He is lost to himself and to us. The narrow, rigid tower he has formed encased and no longer contains him. The thoughts and edifices he had constructed to protect himself are no longer present. All contact with the ego has been lost. This archetypal figure is important and present in all of us, but only when the ego is not overactive may we find that access is possible. The other similar feminine figure, the tarot Strength, dominated the canvas. She confronted and tamed the lion, which could represent taming emotions so they do not run away. Here we see the reclaimed energies put to more creative use. One part of the transmuted energy flows back into the stream. This belongs to the deep unconscious, which can never be wholly assimilated. The other portion fertilizes the ground of everyday reality. Working with these two opposites, she connects them through the activity of her body and the devotion of her spirit. It'll be her task to initiate the ego into the inorganic layers of the psyche. This will be working at a much deeper level than those represented by the lion and much deeper than those represented by the hangman. So let's talk now about what she is doing, how that might be represented alchemically. Oh my gosh, where's it at? There it is. The direction we're going is to connect deeply, to feel the aliveness in our work. In this card, she is very much alive, very much a part of and participant in nature. Here are some alchemical examples of how we may have to give something, some material, some body, a concrete aspect for it to build and go on. So how do we think of this metaphorically to bring it into consciousness, to make it more alive? The most basic tool in alchemy is the receptacle and heat and air. So to give like a fire example for what we see in that tarot card, sometimes at the beginning of a fire, a draft does not develop yet. So I guess what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to say, you know, she's doing active imagination. And earlier we said that, you know, it could be that she was processing the Tower of Destruction and you know, integrating that. But I'm trying to give a couple of different examples here. And I'm saying, well, okay, if we think of this alchemically and we do a fire example, so I'll do a fire example and an air example, and just to give an idea of what the experience might be like. So sometimes, and this is all thinking metaphorically, so sometimes at the beginning of a fire, a draft does not develop yet. Then later the heat and fire creates the draft and pulls the fire into strength. At first, it can be weak, less form. That is its nature: wait, nurture, watch. Sometimes we wait and watch to see what happens when we place a little twig here, and how with our own body we shield it from the wind. It is rising moment by moment. By showing it patience, interest, and respect, it arises. So that's, again, it's like, how do we go into active imagination for our experiences, and how do we think of, you know, the things that we're undergoing metaphorically? Because as much as we can, we want to live in active imagination. So here's an air example, and this, I'm not saying this one has anything to do with air. I just like this alchemical image. You try to start the fire and it is not started. And air is more fantasy, and fire would be more like passion. So this is going to be like contrasting the previous one, passion, with fantasy. But if you create air like fantasy, air like thought. With fantasy, you can heat yourself up, which gives the fire some place to go. By shielding this fire so it does not get too much air, too much fantasy, you use your physicality, your material being, to help slow it. And this is necessary, you know, if you think about like the daemon's other side is the demon. So, you know, it's something you really have to be careful with. You have to, you know, sometimes you have to, you know, control the heat. So note that her work is quite different than Temperance. In Temperance, her task was to collect and amalgamate the disparate parts of the psyche which death had dismembered. think I have temperance up here somewhere. Yeah. The star is separating the contents, perhaps separating the archetypal elements of the unconscious from the more personal contents. The archetypal is poured into the collective stream shared by all mankind. The more personal is poured on the dry land of everyday reality to encourage new life and growth. This will be the way she shapes her world, and it will be one more grounded in natural reality than the towering brick structure built by the intellect. So in this dreamlike card, she is pouring water on our dreams, nourishing them so that they may be connected with the conscious. By bringing these unconscious fantasies into contact with our conscious intentions, we will free the spirit imprisoned in matter. This is the way to the age of Aquarius. So that's today's.
That's wonderful, Gary. I mean, it's just, you know, I'm thinking of that image of where Jung is watering his own flowers below. And, you know, there are just so many things in there that are going to come up in. I wanted to show just quickly Annette's dream, which we were going to, or painting, we were going to discuss yesterday, now right side up. But I just wanted to mention, look at the stars there. There are black stars and there are gold stars. And then when they're formed in the greenness, the black stars form the perimeter, the one that's closest to the outside. Then the second ring of stars are not in the celestial, but they are the color of feeling, passion, and blood. And then the inner group is the golden stars again. And then, of course, we'll discuss this next time, but, you know, there's seems to be 2 eggs, 2 snakes, a lunar crescent, and the snakes have the creative head of the spermatozoa. You know, it's something, and actually the eggs look fertilized to me, but, you know, anyway, but and then there are just so many things in there. First of all, you know, one thing that this whole session, this whole book is going to be on, if we're very patient, is about dealing with resistances. You know, you know, in fact, she one time does not have any dreams for a long time, you know, and he says that's because of her resistances. She resists the work, so she's not sent dreams. Now, here, this feminine being is watering the earth, and she is also appears to be without persona. She has occurred, you know, went to her nature self. The one now we were talking about this morning, you know, is that this ego formation that formed out is of the consciousness of the body, the informing wisdom of nature is now standing outside. The wisdom of the body never left nature. So this is the idea in the Swan Maidens that, you know, she's very flighty. And if you do anything to offend her, she returns to nature because she's not familiar with this strange, distorted world of consciousness. And so the only way the strange, distorted world of consciousness can unite with the nature being within us is to become a swan himself or herself. So so the idea of dream work and active imagination is to turn ourselves into a swan. Now, this is just this wonderful from Mysterium Conjunctionis. If thou wouldst moisten this dry earth. Okay, now that's what she's doing. Now, this is what actually the woman on the tarot card is doing, and is what Jung did when he was watering his flowers with the kabiri, and also what this woman is doing. If you will contemplate, now this comes up today, if you will contemplate your lack of fantasy, of inspiration and inner aliveness, your separation from the water of life, from nature, which you feel is sheer stagnation and a barren wilderness. Now, this is the literal, taking everything literally and living in literal three-dimensional, and impregnated with the interest born of alarm at your inner death, then something can take shape in you. For your inner emptiness conceals just as great a fullness if you only allow it to penetrate into you. If you approve receptive, now this is such an important word because it is the attitude of symbolic thinking and of feminine consciousness. If you will prove receptive to the call of the wild of nature, the longing for fulfillment will quicken the sterile wilderness of your soul, and rain will quicken the dry earth. You are so sterile, because, and you're going to hear this word a lot in her dreams. If you are so sterile, because without your knowledge, something like an evil spirit, this is really the dryness of ego, has stopped up the source of your fantasy, the fountain of the water of life of your soul. You wish to have results that flatter your pride. You expect something useful, but there can be no question of that, as you have realized with the shock. Anything that comes out of the consciousness, unconscious, that's useful is not useful to soul. Because of this, you are no longer even want to be fruitful, as that would only be for God's sake. To be fruitful, it was not for your betterment in your ego life. It only benefits soul. It only benefits the inner world. It's only for God's sake, but not for your own, for ego. So this is the idea of moistening this dry earth. If thou wouldst moisten this dry earth, so anyway, that's kind of an introduction to what we're going to do today. And I really think, this is the idea of active imagination. Gary said that we should be we should always have soul with us. Soul should go with us everywhere. When soul does not go with us, that is when we're, are in this state of not having active imagination. If you always have soul with you, it's sort of scary. When I go in to my active imagination, I, see now Hermes, and I see the soul, and I see the Great Mother, and I see the unconscious depths, the ocean, and I see Sophia. But when I ask her, when I try to bring that into real life, I feel a real sense of when it comes into waking consciousness, when I'm not in meditation, there's a little bit of fear there, because you kind of, it's disorienting, because now you have soul with you in the outer world. It's disorienting. It seems threatening, but it's threatening to ego consciousness. This is going to come up today, and we'll rediscuss it. And hi Diane and Azine and Ava. I didn't even say hi to Ava yet, and Tim and Annette. So anyway, last time we discussed those the dream of the garden with the orienting points. She needed four points of the compass, because she needs to form against the background of the structure of the psyche, and not just all by herself. She needs the psychic structure to form properly. Then the new room where everything is too low, and then the new new house, which she used very little, the beautiful house, only used it for those rare moments of intuition. And this just comes up that in the fact that the house and the room are both basic feminine symbols, and in particular symbols of the maternal aspect of protecting the protecting containing vessel. I was going to say too, Gary, you know, the idea, what is heated in the vessel, this is so interesting to me. It's actually beautiful, although it's a little graphic. The alchemists say that what is in the vessel needs to become the temperature of fresh horse dung. Okay. Now, if you're ever in the dog park and you have to pick up your dog's, you'll know what fresh horse dung temperature is. But the idea is it needs to have the warmth of the body. You know, this is what the ghosts who visit us complain about, is they no longer have human warmth. So they want to sit by the fire, you know, because they don't have the warmth of the human. But anyway, this is this protecting, containing vessel. It has two aspects of the mother image: the empirical personal mother, the literal mother, to whom her relationship was highly problematical, and then the transpersonal mother. This is not the literal mother. This is the magic mother. You know, anytime we talk about anything that's not literal, it possesses magic. You know, it possesses the psyche. You know, and this transpersonal mother is also capable of giving orientation, which she did not have before, and so there's an anticipation of this new answer to her negative mother fixation. And you know, this is going to come up to the house that we have within, you know, is a very important symbol of the dual parentage. You've got parents in the inner world, and you also have parent. You also have a you know, this comes up now. This is actually one of the oldest icons of Christ in it's from the 6th or 7th century. This is called Christ Pantokrator, and the word krator comes from like autocrat, and it means ruler, but panto means the universal ruler. Okay, so this is Christ Pantokrator, and if you look at him, look at his left, or it would be our left and his right, or is actually our left and is would be his right, and his right would be our left. But look at the left side. Okay, so now that if they take this and put it in a mirror, that's his right side. That's ego consciousness, and this is his left side. You know, now those are those eyes of woe and beauty that we hear about. You know, they're not these eyes. They're the eyes of woe and beauty, and they are represent two, I think, swan consciousness. You know, the swan consciousness. You know, I think it's interesting that the Swan Maidens, you know, came from an earlier era of Taurus and Aries, where the current anima is more connected with water. She's the Undine, the mermaid, or the Nixie, you know, and she's more related to Pisces and to Aquarius. It's interesting, Pisces and Aquarius are both very connected with water, which is represents that thing that moistens the dry earth. The thing that ego lacks is moistness. You know, this is the idea of the feminine consciousness is moist, where masculine consciousness is desiccated, dry, and arid. It doesn't have any of that because it's remote, you know. Well, anyway, we'll just go quickly through the dream that we discussed last time. I see a half-formed man with sad animal eyes. My friend appears. This is her male friend. This is the one that she had kind of a, he was a very extroverted feeling type, exactly the opposite to her. And yet he seemed, her only relationship with him was as his mother. You know, he was acting as a mother figure for him, not as a consort, not as a lover. But anyway, he appears and he's going to look for a woman who will take care of this creature. Now, this dream comes up after the dreams about the new room with things that are too low, of the garden and the plan for the garden or the house, and of this house, which is in, she's not sure if she pays rent for, and is she uses only very rarely. So something is beginning, but it is not yet as yet. It's very new, it's very tender, and it must not be forced. And an attitude of patience and humility is needed, exactly what she lacks and exactly what we lack. You know, as Jung said in that one thing, is that that if it's only going to serve the purposes of the Swan Maiden, or of God, or of the inner world, we don't want it. That's not what that's not what the ego consciousness does not want to give up its own willfulness and its desire. So this idea of patience, humility, and not forcing anything, this Wu Wei. Now, she'd been impressed with the idea, if she could make herself more permeable, then things would start to come through her more in a more clear fashion. And so this idea that something is forming, that this very primitive man, you know, something between man and nature, something between man and nature. Well, that's what that's what the anima is. You know, what the book by Emma Young was called Naturwesen in German, means nature beings. The English title is the anima as an elemental being. So she represents life, she represents nature. So the man is not only separated from the feminine, but he's also separated from nature, from the nature being. And she is, you know, she's only half human, you know. And the animus is also half nature too. I mean, you could see here that he's half human, half nature. This he's up at this point. It represents the instinctive world. You know, the eye of the animal has the same peculiar expression of that mental state before consciousness. You know, the half nature. She sees into the very soul of this animal, and this is the experience she should have. Something new is coming up, but she needs to have the look into the very soul of her instinctive life, because she's so disconnected from nature. And you know, we discussed this last time, and I think, you know, one time it is the what the unconscious seems to stress is not cosmic consciousness. It seems to stress instinctual, returning to nature. This whole experiment of life seems to be that the only way that the God image can evolve is through a very thin Archimedean point outside, which is disconnected from nature, which can now, if it becomes the collaborator of nature, can then move consciousness forward. I mean, think of this. There were no words before there were grammar. That was actually the first development of this experiment, was subjects, predicates, nouns, and words, which represented that which lies behind them, and are a great differentiation. This is the second creation. This is the idea of in the beginning was the word. It's the second creation. But anyway, that the idea is this is very, very useful to the unconscious, which before had no words. It didn't think in words. And yet I think I just had this vision, Gary, in the Qigong, that there's a wisdom without words. I mean, you just feel it in the Qigong. So this primitive man symbolizes nature as opposed to spirit, source and substance as opposed to order and meaning, and it compensates her emphasis on the intellectual and logical side. So this is the instinctual side of man. It's this. He was the son of us. Caliban was his name. He's the son of the white goddess of death, who's really the great mother. So he's the son of the mother, and it's borne out by, my friend is going to look for a woman who will take care of the creature. Now, the friend is an animus figure, quite different from the psychological friend. Here's her description of him. Now, this is her man friend. He's a dynamic and warm-hearted man with a special gift for bringing people together. A feeling type, yet the same type at the same time, very intelligent. So he is successfully combined intelligence with relatedness, which she has not done. And so he not only carries the projection of feeling, but also makes feeling acceptable to her because it's so highly conscious. Now, the woman was Hungarian, and she'd been to Hungary. She thought it had a very chthonic and earthly character, as opposed to the more unearthly character of Western Europe. And it's a strange, remote country belonging to another age, and thus her male friend who's the animus, acts as the mediator, making contact with her own chthonic instinctual side, which she's separated from, and which needs to look after her instinctive masculine side, the one that's half nature. This is the half nature side of her. And the dream points to a mystery of transformation hinted at in previous dreams with the journey abroad. It continues the ground plan dream, the new room dream, the migrating bird dream. It seems to be a deepening of it and a grounding of it. And it's now there's some other ideas here that we kind of went over last time, but the Thoth and Hermes Trismegistus are associated with the baboon, and so it does represent a symbol of transformation. It is the transformation, I think, is from a willful ego to a becoming a swan. That's the idea of dream work and active imagination, is to transform yourself into what you are not, which is a nature being. And so this, she's going to transform into from this nature being into this is just a wonderful statement that I just love uh, uh, so much. Is this is from, I think it's yeah, it's from Zosimos, uh, uh, and this is it. Art requires the whole man. One must ask the eternal self for such instruction, for men do not impart this science. So it's this idea of the you know that that philosopher's stone cannot be produced in nature, and it can't be produced by ego, but it only could come to us through you know what Jung heard in the Red Book is the only way you can go forward is to have no intentions. If you go into this work with intentions and with sure, this was what her two things were. First of all, her very strong ego, number one, doubted the genuineness of all of this. And the other one is her powerful ego, is second thing, other than doubting the genuineness of all these unbelievable images that are one is more surprising than the next as you go through them. And the other aspect was that it wanted to force the issue. You know, this was in the dream of the brooch, where it tries to reflect the light on the face of and give a revelation. So this is what her ego is trying to do, and they're both things it needs to give up. You know, it needs to. This will come up in the dream of her friend is going to write a book called Without Prejudice, and her friend is more realistic than she is. You know, this was I thought Diana, the woman with the practical shoes, is going to write a book called Without Prejudice, and that means she accepts. She's not going to judge these images. She's going to accept them. Okay, so this all hints at the ritual of renewal, which points far beyond her infantile relationships to nature, and all rites and rituals are attempts to abolish the separation between ego consciousness and the source of life. All rites and rituals are attempts to abolish the separation between ego consciousness and it's the source of life. Wow. You know, what if that could happen? And it brings about a reunion of the individual with his native soil. You know, you often find this in dreams, that you're returning to your homeland, the one that you really belong to. And so it's a symbol of this man, primitive man, and this transformation and this ritual which followed the dreams is in deep contrast to the fakeness of her previous revelations. So she remembered a lot of her dreams, which were where she's neglecting some animal, and it was generally a dog. That was my dreams all the time, is emaciated dogs. You open the basement, comes up a dog that you had 20 years ago and been trapped in the basement all this time without food and water, you know. Okay, well then next, here is a very interesting dream. This is in what strange and unaccountable manner the symbol of the Great Mother persists in her. The fact that she is neglecting her in nature side came from in this dream. She finds herself in a garden where she has to pass a beehive, and she's afraid that the bees will become entangled in her hair and sting her, and she tries not very successfully to keep them off. Well, you know, the bees, you know, the Great Mother was supposed to be sort of a queen bee, you know, and her favorite animal was the bee. And there's all kinds of forms of bee bees in mythology. You know, one was this figure of Melissa. You know, that means the bee. The honey is actually what it means. You know, and she is a child of a goddess, a nature, earth goddess. You know, Melissa. She is the daughter, and of course, almost every mother goddess is related to what's this down here? This is Cybele. She's related to the beehives, you know, and there's also even in India. I mean, there's just this relationship of the feminine with the bee. Now, the idea of the bee is, what does it fertilize? It fertilizes flowers. You know, the flowers are an imitation. You know, and the bees, and the idea of the queen bee, the mother bee, who is the central. She's at the center of the hive. So it was really a mother goddess image, that at the center, our psychic center, resides the great mother, and we're all her worker bees. You know, we're to serve the center, who is the source of life. She's the life bearer, you know, and you're to be in service to her, you know. So anyway, she was the bees are representative of the feminine potency of nature, and they're associated with earth goddesses Demeter, Artemis, Persephone, and even the sleeping Kundalini. It sounds like a bee. It issues a hum of a bee, and so now it was no wonder, since this bee is so related to the great mother, that she was, this woman in her dream was not very successful in keeping him from entangling themselves in her hair. Now, into her intellect, you know, and into her femininity, and this negative aspect of the bee, the stinging, is she's afraid of feminine potency. She's resisting the work. This comes up so often, and you know, this resisting the work is one of our major issues. Okay, now she felt, after these two dreams, she felt as if there was a screen just in front of her, and things were starting to become visible on it, but she wouldn't be able to relate to these unconscious images. And Adler said that she had an excessively common sense attitude that gave her a profound distrust of the unconscious and of irrational happenings. And she admitted that she felt that other people's intuitions were always genuine, but hers were complete nonsense. Who doesn't feel that? You know, let's read Jung's dreams, or let's read someone else's dreams, but mine aren't real. There's nothing about mine that are real. They're nonsense. And Adler says, are they nonsense? Read them sometime. You know, I mean, they're unbelievably profound. You know, and yet we just, just blow them off. You know, the most precious part of us, we just blow them off. The only thing we have that's real and genuine, by the way, that's and related to nature, and that it comes out of nature within us and no one else. And so they're our treasure, hard to attain, yet we undervalue them. So he told her that she would have to just, had to give these distrusted autonomous images free play. And her own words, this remark first made her begin to see that she was trying to get in touch herself, her whatever awareness we have in the outer world, which is rather thin and has extreme limitations, that thing of us that has such extreme limitations was not trying to get in touch with some magical thing in a vague outside, but something fully alive and within us. It's real. It exists. So now, then she had this wonderful vision that someone was walking behind her in a dark street and she was giving them small coins without looking around. And she went on till she had no more small coins left, and then she turned around. But to her amazement, the person that was following her was not a beggar, but it was Sybil, the divine oracle. That's who she was giving her small change to. And Sybil, is this earth goddess. She is, the one that Michelangelo painted was, he painted about 5 or 6 of them. And they're, inexplicably, they're in the Sistine Chapel, Sybil. But here's the one of the oracle at Delphi, Sybil, heed these words, you who wish to probe the depths of nature. If you do not find within yourself that which you seek, neither will you find it outside. In you is a hidden treasure, the treasure of treasures. Know thyself, and you will know the universe and the gods. So that's the idea of the Sybil, this one who she's giving her small change to. Here is the oracle at Delphi. Here, this is from the Sistine Chapel. This is the one who's following her. The name for the one who follows behind is this Synopados. The one who follows behind, or is within, and we're not aware of. I'll just show you a couple other Sibyls, because there was, the Sybil was one who lived in a cave, and usually right above a volcanic vent, and gave that's a Sybil. Some of these are quite masculine, by the way. That is one, and let me show you this one. I mean, check out the arms on this one. This is that's a Sybil. One of these. This is who's following her. That she's giving, not a beggar. Okay. Well, anyway, I could show some more, but we'll keep moving. It expresses the feeling of an intangible. Now, that's a really interesting word, intangible, living presence that's within us always. Intangible, I think, really means that it's not in space and time. So we should say, really, there is a living presence that's within us always that is not in space and time. And her small change is not adequate tribute to this Sybil who's within her. She had to put maximum effort into this process. She must go into her exploration of the unconscious with feeling and not sterilize all the emotion out of it. This word that comes up very often in her sterileness. And it was as if the Great Mother had sent her a divine messenger, both as a challenge and a potential support. And from this point onward, She could often feel that something like a person was standing just beside her shoulder, a non-ego, an archetypal figure. Now, the next four dreams have to do with winged creatures. They're very interesting, and they also represent an aspect of the animus that Jung said is not really in men. Okay. With her younger brother and her sister, they're in the garden, and there was a screen, which was a growing awareness of inner projections on which rare butterflies are settling. And one of them is so beautiful, she knew it to be the butterfly of all butterflies. Now, the word psyche actually means butterfly. You know, it's a strange word, but it is the idea of the butterfly being related. Psyche is the Greek word for soul, but it has twin roots. One is the butterfly, whose mysterious, beautiful, but elusive permutations metaphorically dramatize our experience of soul. Caterpillar, cocoon, butterfly. And soul also comes from the word pneuma, or to breathe. By the way, it means, I believe, now I might be wrong on this, but I might have mixed up, but anima means to breathe in, and animus means to breathe out. Now, I might be wrong on that, but anyway, this idea of the butterfly, which is just this amazing being of transformation. It's just something that is just incredible. The fact that it basically goes from the caterpillar egg to the caterpillar, then to the cocoon, where the caterpillar completely dissolves into a white liquid, and then that white liquid turns into this being, the psyche. And this word metaphorical, it comes from Ovid's Metamorphoses, and it means that changing, something that is always changing. It does not mean theoretical. It means what it really, a real metaphor is a living experience. It's not what's the other word? An allegory. An allegory is a story, but a metaphor is something within. It's an experience. What does this point to in me? And so it's really an experience. The other one was the second dream, were two airplanes in battle. It doesn't say anything about that. Then two exceptionally beautiful. Now listen to these words. Now, all of these dreams, by the way, had unbelievable colors in them. Two exceptionally beautiful swifts flying over the Lake of Geneva. This was her god lake. This was for some reason the Lake of Geneva was represented God to her. This is the Lake of Geneva. If you had a lake that represented God, that would be a good one, with the mountains in the background, and these swifts that fly over, over the water, and catch insects on the water. So that was her third dream about winged things. And then this is the next one, and then we'll kind of finish with this, but there's so much more I'd like to go through. That she's with her younger brother and her sister. So she's with the naive animus and her helpful companion. And they're walking by a cornfield when she saw two hawks, Montague harriers. Now remember, she's an ornithologist. And to her, these are the most beautiful of all hawks. She saw them in the dream quite correctly, even down to their wild yellow hawk's eyes and their proud, aloof expression. And one of them came down and settled into her arms, which was unbelievably moving. And it contained, so this contained the symbol of rebirth and transformation. The hawk is the bird of Horus and of the reborn Osiris. And so when it symbols Horus settles into her arms, it seems for a fleeting moment that she is Isis, because Horus is the son of Isis. And it also takes place by the cornfield. The ear of corn is the central symbol of the Eleusinian mysteries, which culminates on another birth of Bremos. And so now all of these dreams seem to have to do with swift movements, the elusive symbols of the animus, that winged being, and to a more intuitive recognition than to establish fact. And taken together, they seem to be a transition, preparation for the coming of winged thoughts. And this is, Hermes wears wings. Those movements of soul and spirit, which are free and swift. And the spirit cannot descend not only like a dove, but like a falcon, and seize its prey in an unbreakable grip. And so it gave them special significance. I just would maybe say a little bit about that dream, just some images that come up. First of all, this beautiful bird, the Montague harrier, is there. That's the Montague harrier. And she says it's the most beautiful of all the hawks. Now this is represents its aspect as Horus, right here. And when here, and let's look at Isis and Horus together. Now this is the hawk settling into her arms. Now she's going to have a series of birth dreams. And, she's 48 years old. She has not had any children, and she's beyond childbearing age. But she's going to have several very mysterious birth dreams where she has a baby, and yet she does not know who. She never gets to see it, and nobody ever tells her anything about it. And so she's wondering, was it born dead? Or am I just not allowed to see it? Thought I'd show you just sort of a funny thing about Horus. He's always represented as someone in his human manifestation. He's represented as someone pointing to his mouth. Now, that is actually the Egyptian hieroglyph for the child, and it means to speak. Okay, and yet the Greek Horus, who's called Harpocrates, is the god of silence. So they sort of misinterpreted the sign of pointing to the mouth as I will not speak, you know. But now also you may remember someone named Harpo Marx, you know, someone who never spoke. You know, I'm not sure, you know, he played a harp. You know, his brothers were Groucho and Chico and Zeppo. But, you know, anyway, he was a sort of this figure of silence, you know. And I think there's, I don't know if there's anything else here. Well, not really. So anyway, that is, no, just quickly, what we haven't covered yet, and I'll cover it next time, is now I do want to maybe mention Osiris. I love Osiris. I don't know why, but I'm always. Oh yeah, I wanted to mention this real quick. This was a dream I had about grains. I had two dreams about grains. One was about Kore. Just this feminine announced to me that she was 88 years old and she's related to Kore. And now she used words here that I would never use. I am here to remand, correct, and avail. Now, I didn't really know what remand and avail really meant. You know, remand means to send back for another opinion. You know, I'm going to remand this decision to a lower court, you know, a judge would say. And to avail means to assist. So she is here to demand another decision, to correct the old decision, and to heal, to avail, you know. And then, you know, I just had a dream very recently about just a couple days ago, that there I was in. First, I met this golden child. You know, he represented everything I wasn't. He was extroverted, feeling function, sensate, youth, who was very strong and very blonde. And then the next thing was I got to see down into a deep shaft, which is a grain storage bin, you know, and it was dry and there were just a few kernels of grain in there. And who built this and why was it so deep, you know? And then I'm seeing it through this television or for this video camera that I'm putting down into it. And then suddenly I see gushing up the most clear, beautiful water you ever saw. And it just keeps coming up and up and up and up and up. And then as soon as it gets to the top, it stops. And I'm going, wow, it knew how to stop at the top. And then after that, it pours out everywhere, you know. And so anyway, that was this just a dream I had about the grains. And what will come up next is the the metal ring and the I can't believe we didn't get to that. The metal ring. Now she goes from this every time she closes her eyes. I think I said this last time, but every time she closes her eyes, this is what she sees. You know, the pulling on her, you know. But now after 6 weeks of analysis, this is before she had analysis. After 6 weeks of analysis, she's going to see this. That metal ring transfers into a jewel, which emanates light rays and allows her to see what lies behind it. And what she sees is the feminine and the masculine in her. And yet they are outside, so they're only theoretical. They've only been illuminated, and they can't really unite yet. But she recognizes her psyche as a bipolar symmetry. Her psyche is symmetrical. Yeah, and I wanted to mention a couple of things too quickly about the winged dreams. You know, this was the winged dreams were, this was a question Emma Young asked. She says, it seemed to me that the animus was not a symbol of immortality. The animus is not a symbol of immortality, but of movement. These winged thoughts, and that it is man's attitude that gives this different aspect to the anima. And Dr. Young says, it's true that the animus is often represented by a moving figure, an aviator or a manager, and perhaps there's more movement in the unconscious of women, these winged thoughts. This comes up too in, I think, one of the really more beautiful images I've ever read. I just love to hear it over and over again. This is from this feminine movement, in the unconscious. When Parsifal's in the Grail castle, he tells the Grail king, I scarcely move, yet swiftly seem to run or to move. And the Grail king says, my son, thou seest here, space and time are one. Now, I think that's the whole idea of the consciousness of nature is totally synchronistic. It's not surprised that because it's basically based on quantum physics, where the ego is Newtonian. It's totally based on rational physics, where the inner world, quantum physics, is synchron. This was so excited Wolfgang Pauli and Jung, and really Einstein too, about, because a lot of Jung's ideas about synchronicity. Einstein lived in Zurich. With Jung, and he would have dinner with him almost every Sunday, and that's how he kind of developed this idea. But nature, space and time are one. So there is a consciousness within us where space and time are one, and then there's another consciousness in us that is where space and time are not one. They are this excessive limitations of the ego. You can see why they would call it the excessive limitations of the ego, because it is missing the moon eye. This comes up in the eye. In the East, thought is something that happens and can be felt. It's real. It's an event. So they write lovingly of what these thought beings are doing. And we never perceive that in our thoughts. So the East says, but you only look for it with your sun eye. If you would look for these thought beings with your moon eye, it would be completely clear to you. So by sinking deeply into ourselves and following the serpent path, we can form a bridge which will enable us to see the light on the other side of the world, through our moon eye. And remember, all the people that leave their eyes in the unconscious. Go ahead, Tim. Did you have a question here? Oh, no. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, I think I went, whoo! I didn't even know how late I was. So let's just open it up for questions. I think I confused everybody with my medical emergency yesterday. So go ahead, Gary.
Well, I probably confused everyone today too with my alchemy stuff. So we're right on cue. I thought it was interesting, where she has the dream and she's dropping coins, and but I thought it was a good dream, because it was like, she's like leaving these offerings, and then she turns around and she sees that, oh, this has way more significance than I understood. So to me, this was good. This was it was a sign that no, there's movement, there's things happening, and you need to take note. It was kind of like, okay, come to.
She's very she realized that it was no game at that point when she turns around, sees that she's giving her small change to a divine feminine figure.
Right. Tim, would you like to go next?
Sure. I've got a couple of thoughts. One has to do with anguish and joy. And that really struck me when you mentioned that today, because I've been thinking last couple of days about a paper that my sister shared with me. I happened to go over there a couple of days ago, and she said, "Oh, I printed this thing out by mistake. Do you want it?" And I said, "Sure." And it turns out she was going through some old thumb drives and had run into something she had written and just printed it to see what it was. And anyway, it was kind of a throw off on her part, but it was part of her journal from when my parents died 18 years ago. And it's some of the most profound writing I have ever read. It's just really astonishing. And it's not only about the day-to-day details of dealing with grief. We've got to clean out the closet and we've got to do all these other things, but it has to do with life and vibrancy and joy. And the thing that I come away from it is this really beautiful attitude that your grief is only as deep as your joy. And you have a really profound relationship, you're going to have a profound grief. It's just such a beautiful writing. And she talks about, human foibles. And one of my favorite lines is that silly war where these people are flinging themselves at each other like drunken children. And I came away from that sentence thinking, I'm not sure if I've ever heard anybody turn war into something kind of precious and dear. Anyway, I also wanted to share a little drawing I did when you were talking about returning to Earth. And this to me is part of the journey that we all take. We are trying to absorb the animal that is our body and our being in this world, and to understand the wisdom on that level. That's it.
It was great, Tim.
Yeah,
really
Gary, I just wanted to remember, Gary had a dream where he was going around on a thing a mechanic uses. What do they call a dolly to go under a car? Yeah. And yet he's turned so his face is plowing through the earth. So his body is turned upside down. I mean, now remember too, the earth and the lower stories in our consciousness are our bones, the marrow in our bones, our heart, our lungs, our hands, our feet. It's the body. That's what the experience. It isn't that farm field half a mile away here.
Great. John, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. I hope my internet connection is better. I'm using my hotspot, but yeah, I just constantly surprised by her dream images and kind of jealous actually. But I had some thoughts I was thinking during the whole, what you were reading, but then at the end when you started talking about, or at least what I teased out of it about, physics and the physicists. And I had mentioned it before. I don't know how familiar you are with Michael Conforti, but You know him, yeah. He's written a couple of books. One of them is called Field, Form, and Fate, and it's about basically how depth psychologists and physicists are saying the same thing, just with different languages. And you know, he does a conference in Assisi, Italy every year called The Confluence of Matter and Spirit, where he brings people together from all these different disciplines and, you know, to find a common language. And I was thinking about Rupert Sheldrake and his idea of morphic fields, and it relates to when we talk about archetypes and images clustering around archetypes. I mean, it fits to me so perfectly. You know, and when you showed Ava's picture, I found that very fascinating, because I apologize, I don't attend the Saturday group, but I don't know the history behind that painting, if it was something that, you know, if it was a dream image or what. But when you put that up and put it the right way around, I immediately saw a uterus, you know, the uterus, fallopian tubes, the ovaries. And I mean, we're talking about alchemical containers today. I mean, that's what a uterus is. It's a container, you know, it contains a birth. I just find that, you know, immensely fascinating. That's just a beautiful image. You know, I do a lot of GYN surgery, so I see that all the time. And it just struck me, you know, how, you know, what that was. I don't know what it was made in reaction to, and you probably are, maybe that's what it was drawn for. I don't know, but that's pretty fascinating. So that's what I got. Thanks.
Yeah, well, you know, Annette, it's Annette's drawing. Ava Ava has some wonderful drawings I'd like to discuss too. But you know, Marion Woodman said that the pelvis, our pelvis is really a cradle, you know, and here you can see sort of this cradle that is holding something that is coming in, you know, this greenness aspect. And yeah, it does. I mean, it just looks like the fallopian tubes and everything else. And
I've seen in some alchemical books, I have one by somebody named Fabricius, I think, and there's a lot of times where the alchemical container is portrayed, you know, sort of similar to that. And, you know, I think that's exactly what analysis is. I mean, when you're in that room with your analyst, it's an alchemical container. Yeah. And I don't talk about my dreams much, but I will tell you, because specifically I had this dream, you know, and I think that, and it was a warning dream, but for me, and this is just for me, but, you know, this is the way I understand it, but you know, you have that time with your analyst, and that is the alchemical container. And, you know, like the alchemists talk about, just heating those elements for so long that they change, or as we say, holding that tension between the pairs of opposites until that transcendent function comes through. But I was, when I first got interested in Jungian psychology, I was working with a plastic surgeon who was also very interested and, well, you know, like you, much more well-read than I am and much more intuitive about this stuff than I am. But I would talk to him in the morning doing a surgery about my dreams. And then I would go talk to my analyst about it. And finally, I had a dream where I was at work and I walked into, I always get emotional when I think about this, but I walked into the employee break room, and on the table was sitting like a cooler, and there was a police officer there. And she looked at me and she said, "Is this yours?" And I said, "Yes." She goes, "There's no open containers allowed in here at all." And I was like, I immediately got, you know, what it meant. And so I don't talk about my dreams outside of my analytic container, but, and that's only for me, because at the time, that's what I was doing. I wasn't allowing that energy or that, you know, to build up and reach that point, you know, or like your dream with the boiling up and then over that. But it was very, I mean, that struck me like a ton of bricks, and it still does to this day. I mean, there's a huge emotional reaction that goes with it, because, you know, it's something I need to keep cognizant of. So
yeah, the repressed emotions. This is what her whole problem with her and her siblings was. They're repressing all of their emotions and feelings. No open containers here, you know. That's wonderful, John. Thank you.
I love the comment that Azin just put in there. There should be a specific word for dream jealousy. I'm definitely feeling it. Annette, would you like to go next?
Okay. Hi. Yes. Thank you. Sorry, I have to charge my phone, so I have to leave it down like this. Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, I was also, it's so beautiful to listen just and to be in this space also. And so I'm really grateful for that. But I was also wondering about when you were talking about all the mermaids and the undines, about all these flood images, and even now as a reality, like some people feel very threatened by water and so on. And I was just wondering, like, should we all talk to our inner mermaids or our inner undines to regulate the weather, you know, to get in connection? I was just wondering, yeah.
What? You know, I don't know if I mentioned this, but you know, I saw the face of my soul, and then suddenly she starts to go underwater.
Oh.
You know, until she's completely submerged, and then that's why I knew she was not a Swan Maiden. She was Undine. You know, she was Nixie, and I said to her, I said, oh, "You're a Nixie." You know, I did. I told her that, but it was, yeah. I mean, the water. You know, sometimes in my active imaginations, nothing is happening, and you know, I'm starting to think that nothing is happening because I'm too intentional. I need to bring soul come into me, and then or move my consciousness down into my heart, and then look or then do it. You know, but then when something comes up, all it might be is just a pitcher of water that's pouring into something. So there's something so important about the clarity of water. Sometimes water mixed with earth, and earth is sloshing around in it, you know.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. Okay.
So, Craig, what would be the difference between a Nixie and a Swan Maiden? What's the significance of that?
Well, the Swan Maiden asks you to do something heroic. You know, it is asking you to participate in battle and to go out and achieve something great. Okay. Now, what the water nymph or the Nixie wants you to do is to come and join her in the unconscious. So the idea is that the Swan Maiden, which is a more archaic, you know, seems to drive man into the outer world to achieve, and then the Nixie and the Undine, which are more from the middle part of Pisces, is more inviting us to join her, not to go out into the outer world and to achieve. So, and the Swan Maiden is more less human. She is more of a deity. She's a goddess, where the Nixie and the Undine are more human, slightly, you know.
The Swan Maiden sounds way more tempting to me than this. Or I mean, the Nixie, I said just wrong. It sounds way more tempting, you know?
Yes. Well, she loves us, where the Swan Maiden is very aloof.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Great. Diane, would you like to go next?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Craig, I'd like to ask you if all of these images with quotes that you get, you know, about the moon, all of these, do you find all of that on the internet like that? I can't hear you.
Okay. No, actually, you know, in my earlier my earlier what do they call that? My earlier life, that's what I did all the time. I would take these quotes and try to add pictures to them. So yeah, I made all those. They were kind of my soul notes, but they really were a great way to learn. Now, a great way to learn for me now is to go through these very carefully, all these, and then try to just, you know, I mean, I learned so much from what we've been doing. far more than I've ever learned in
They
any
seem
other.
to match what we're doing right now.
Yes.
The way you're putting them together is just, you know, you have certainly the magician archetype in you. You know, you're like the Wizard of Oz.
I don't really think I'm doing it, actually. You know,
Yeah,
I listened to
right.
it later, and I don't. I think, first of all, you know, you do it. You get up early in the morning and you do it, and then you come in and as you're doing it, as you're reading it very carefully and stuff, you know, you're sort of interpreting it like a dream, and I don't do that.
Yes.
I mean, my soul is the one that tells me what it means, not, you know, the
Yes,
soul is very close. Yeah.
The time you must put into this is incredible, and I'm very appreciative. Oh, wow. So, and Tim, it's sort of like Tim's art. I mean, he's sketching today, and here it is, this beautiful, it comes and it's just this beautiful piece. You know, you need to keep that. But I wanted to ask you, Tim, about your dreams, since we're talking about dreams. I was been wondering, you remember your dream about going to your old house and you were trying to do marketing for the Confluence, and you found yourself hiding with your face in the dirt.
Right.
You mentioning that about Gary today. I'd like to know if you've had any revelations post Confluence about that dream.
Well, not about that one, but I've had some dreams since that I'll maybe take to the dream group.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's an interesting question. Yeah.
Yeah. And about, you know, I'm just fascinated. You're right, Craig. I mean, we had to take some patience with this, but all of these dreams, and to see, I mean, I think it'll help us all to amplify our own dreams, to see, you know, the progression here that she's made and all of the symbols. It's really fascinating. So I think I'm learning a lot. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I was trying to get I think it reminds me of the play Our Town, you know, where all these people back that are dead come back and tell the stories of their life. That's how I really see a dream series.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Great. Zin?
Hello, everybody. There's so many ideas. So the first thing about bees, I think for some reason, bees are usually in dreams, they can be interpreted as ideas, insights. But I think in her dream, the bees were more, the difference between a swan and a bee is that swan is probably so abstract. It's animal in its abstraction. So it's insight, it's intuitive. But I think the bees, they come from a more sensational place, because in nature, I mean, you can have a beautiful abstract idea, but sensation, since it's related to the body and the nature, it has two sides, like everything else in this world. There's honey and there's sting. So I think what's happening in her dream is that these bees that are sensational insights, some kind of tacit knowledge or something physical that is also related to insights. And here are usually thoughts. So there's so much of this sensational and ideas is coming to her thoughts, her mind, and she's not comfortable with it. But I think that's a kind of relation with her both anima and animus. It's physical, so it's also related to her animus. And the oracle, the Sibyl, I think most of Michelangelo's work are kind of muscular, but the fact that she saw this, I don't know the image that she saw in her dream, but that also may be a combination of anima and animus. About Hermes, Hermes is what you said, that it's about talking or speaking, just pointing to the lips. An archetype holds both sides. So if something is about speaking, it's also about silence. And Hermes has this side because Hermes has this ability to change the reality, twisting the reality to words. And Hermes characters, if you're Persephone, you know what I'm talking about. They have this ability to make you talk about things that you don't want to share, like about your dreams, your intuitions. And they're not always in the lower level of Hermes, they're not always receptive to those. They may mock you, they make fun of you. But if you're in their presence, something makes you talk about your dreams, you know, and later you regret it. So Hermes is about talking, but it also tells you to not share what you have in your dream, as John was talking about it. So it's both sides. Also about the movement, the swift movement of Hermes. Hermes is a messenger between conscious and unconscious. He's a psychopompus, and he's swiftly shifting or moving between these two realms. The interesting thing is that when we talk about integration in Jungian psychology, we just think about opposite, the glow in the darkness, just becoming one with something that you don't like, the shadow, or holding the space between two opposites. Gebser talks more in detail about integration. His idea is that when you are between two thoughts, two opposite forces, whatever they are, he talks about oscillation. You go back and forth between two opposite aspects. And then at some point, he says that there's no integration without, with time. So you go back and forth so swiftly that the time is gone. You go to a timeless space. So that's how diaphany happens. Everything becomes translucent on both sides because you're practically present in two places. There's no time and there's no space. And he thinks that this is a requirement for integration, which was very interesting. I was just connecting it to the idea of Hermes. And the quote that you shared, the Grail King says, "My son," so you see here that space and time are one. This is also a kind of integration between time and space, and going to spaceless and timeless to become integrated with something opposite. So that was really interesting to me.
They're also polarities. They're not irreconcilables. That's what she discovers, that the opposites are polarities, not irreconcilable. Before that, it was all irreconcilable.
Fascinating as always. Ava?
Okay. Yes, the pictures was so beautiful, and I'm thinking about some of you were mentioning water, and as I had this dream about Jordan Peterson, and he gave me a dried sow dog, and then the next dream was a watered dog, and now I have been dreaming about underwater limo boy, a black car that could go underwater. I'm so I think my dreams support that our interpretation in the dream group is right. My dream is happy, and I'm so surprised about it, and it feels so good to have this concrete personal experience when I'm listening to and that's why I think about all my studies in religion, earlier studies. I think that Jordan Peterson is able to make it earthly in some way, talking about feelings or relatedness to how to behave and find meaning and so on. That's why I think the dried dog was watered, and I'm dreaming about a water limo, and also about flowers in a pot and so on. Okay, I hope you understand what.
Yeah.
you can cut it off if I'm not explaining
No,
myself.
I'll tell you, next time we have a group session, I would like to go through quickly Ava's dream about Jordan Peterson, and then her second dream, which is this beautiful initiation dream where on this creative stone, she's saying bread dough or dough, some kind of a dough.
Yeah.
And she's, it's just beautiful. We got to go through it.
But you were the one who, you opened it up for me. It was so a special experience. You're so good at it.
Well, it was a collaboration. Azine helped, and so did Kat. So, okay. Well, thank you, everyone, and we will have Annette. We'll have a session on Friday to just cover your painting, and anybody else who wants to attend at 11 a.m. or Chicago, which is, I think, 6 or 7 p.m. in London and Ireland. I'm not sure, but you know better than me. So,
Craig. I forgot to ask you, I did send you an email to remind you to send me that the painting of Neptune with the stallion.
Oh, yes. Didn't I send that? I will send that right after.
Maybe you did. I wasn't sure because between now and then I haven't had a chance to check my emails.
Her horses come, her white horses are Neptune's. If you see a wave, it's a horse's mane. It's a white horse's mane, and they gallop onto the beach. Isn't that beautiful? Just absolutely.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to sketch it, guys.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'm gonna send it right after I go on this dog walk with this lacerated puppies. They're all sitting around waiting for me to. I'll send it right after I'm done. But this is what I get. Now, see, when I say, okay, everybody, we'll see you later. Now, everybody, they know it's the dog walk.
What time on Friday?
It will be 11 a.m. Chicago, which I think would be 9 a.m. in Sacramento. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time. Okay, bye, Tim and John and everybody. Bye-bye.